Hello everyone and welcome back to another math video. Today we're going to be looking at how do you simplify radical expressions. So similar to this problem that you see up on the screen. Just a reminder, this is the full lesson, so we're going to go step by step with a bunch of examples. If you would like the short version where we just cover the main ideas very quickly, I will link that in the description below. Okay, so this is a radical, this sort of weird looking check mark symbol, okay? We call that a radical, and the way you read this problem, this says the square root of 16. And the reason we read it as the square root of 16 is because there is an invisible 2 in this part here. So if you're familiar with exponents, right, that's squared. So this is the square root of 16. And what this asks me is what number times itself 2 times gives me 16. So what number, I'm going to say that again, what number times itself 2 times gives me 16? And so you could start listing out numbers, right? For example, 1 times 1 equals 1, 2 times 2 equals 4, 3 times 3 equals 9, 4 times 4 equals 16, and oh, look, 16, that's what we were looking for, right? And so the answer to this, what number times itself, is 4, all right? And this is just the final answer, right? You sort of lose the radical symbol, and your answer is 4. And what we need to talk about here is, if you look at these numbers, 1, 4, 9, 16, these are special numbers. These are called perfect squares, all right? And very quickly here, I'm going to list the rest of the perfect squares up on the screen. And bam, here are all of the perfect squares, or at least the ones that I think you'll probably need to know. Most of the time, you're not going to go above 17 times 17, all right? So these numbers that I've circled here, these are perfect squares. They're going to be really, really important. All right, here's our cool clock for today, which means that it's time for you to practice what you just learned. Go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 problems on your own. And when you're ready, you can unpause the video and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your answers. We should realize that 81 is on the list that I just gave you, right? And the answer is 9, because 9 times 9 will give me 81. And for 225, also a perfect square, that would be 15 times 15. Now for this problem, what happens when the number under the radical, under the square root, is not a perfect square, right? 18 is not on that list that I gave you. So what we need to do is we need to look at 18. We need to factor 18. My favorite way to teach factors is to make the list, right? So you go 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. 4 gives you a decimal. 5 gives you a decimal. 6 is already on the list, and so now we're just repeating. So these are all the factors of 18, and now you need to look at your list that you have here. Okay, here's your list, and you say which of those numbers is a perfect square, right? Which one of those is on the list that we made at the beginning? And the answer to that is 9, right? 9 is a perfect square. So what we do is we break, or we factor, the square root of 18 into the square root of 2 times the square root of 9. And then the square root of 9 we know, right? That's 3. And this stays the square root of 2. Remember, this is all with a multiplication symbol in the middle. And now the way we write our answer, we normally write the number, the regular number on the at the beginning. So we start with the regular number. So our final answer looks like this: 3 square root of 2. Okay? All right, time to practice. Pause the video, try these 2 on your own. When you're ready, we'll check them. All right, you've had time to work on these problems. Let's check your answers. Okay, for the first problem here is the work. You should have ended up with 2 square root of 3. All right, for the second problem, I want to pause in the middle here because here's my factor list. And if you notice, there are actually 2 perfect squares on the list, right? 9 is a perfect square, and 36 is a perfect square. How do you pick the right one? Well, the answer is you can pick either one. However, it will save you time if you pick the biggest perfect square. In this case, that's 36. And so if you chose 36, here is the work and your final answer. And then I will also show what happens if you had chosen the 9 instead. Okay, and here's the work if you had chosen the 9. Notice that you have to do an extra factoring. So you break it into 8 and 9 here. but then you have to break the 8 into 2 and 4. So you have to do an extra step, right? So again, choosing the biggest perfect square is always faster. All right, what happens if there's a number on the outside? So we still do our normal factor table, 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 3 decimal, 4 and 7, 5, 6, and 7. 5 and 6 are decimals, 7's already in the list. So here are our factors. Biggest perfect square is 4. So this breaks into, now keep the 6 in the front, right? So 6 times, remember there's a multiplication, 6 times square root of 4 times square root of 7. Square root of 4 just becomes 2. So 2, 6, square root of 7. And now we just get 12 square root of 7. So the short version of that is to say that whatever is the perfect square, right, that comes out, right, 4 becomes the 2, then you just multiply that by the number on the outside, giving you 12 square root of 7. All right, time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video, try these two on your own. When you're ready, you can unpause and we'll check your answer. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, should have ended up with 35 times the square root of 3. Here's the work if you want to check your answer. And for the second problem, here is the work and final answer. All right, that is it for today. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.